I'm tossed in sins out of life, that I might see, and the light that shines in darkness now will safely lead me home. If it wasn't for the lighthouse, my ship would sail no more. And I thank God for the lighthouse. I owe my life to Him. Jesus is the lighthouse, and from the rocks of sin He has shown the light around me, that I might clearly see. If it wasn't for the lighthouse, tell me where would this ship be? And everybody that lives around me wants to tear the lighthouse down. They say the big ships don't sail this way anymore. No use in it standing round. Then my mind goes back to that stormy night, when just in time I saw the light from that old lighthouse that stands upon the hill. Y'all sing it with me. And I thank God for the lighthouse. I owe my life to Him. Jesus is the lighthouse. Jesus is the lighthouse. From the rocks of sin, the rocks of sin, He has shown His light around me, that I might clearly see. If it wasn't for the lighthouse, tell me where would this ship be? And I thank God for the lighthouse. I owe my life to Him. And if it wasn't for the lighthouse, tell me where would this ship be?
Thank you very much, Danny. Our text is from the 13th chapter of Hebrews. If you will turn there, I want to read the first and second verses in just a moment. I've been asked, many times through the years, how long does it take you to prepare a sermon? And my standard answer in recent years has been a lifetime. And perhaps more than any other time I've stood to preach, I say that the sermon that I'm sharing with you today is one that has been being prepared for today all of my life. The Hebrew writer said, "Let brotherly love continue. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares." And he led us in the singing of that song. There are angels all around. Perhaps some of you remember Dale Evans and Roy Rogers as little children. You probably remember that. I do. And one of the things that I remember that happened in their life was that they had a little girl born into their home named Robin. Everyone said that they ought to dispose of Robin because she was a Down syndrome child. And of course, they were excited because little Robin had been introduced to their home. And so they put, of course, all of that talk aside and ignored it. And Robin lived 2.5 years, and they were delighted to have her for 2.5 years. But in answer to the only 2.5 years that they had for Robin, Dale Evans wrote a book called Entertaining Angels Unawares. It's a story of how Robin would have looked down on earth and expressed how in those 2.5 years love had abounded in her life. And it was a book that introduced the treatment of special needs children and made America and perhaps even the world better aware of the needs of special needs children, so that many parents today have been introduced to a better way for caring for special needs children. Of course, in that day, it was a very important thing that you were hospitable to other people. Houses in that day were often open, and if you wanted to come and be a part of a lunch that was being prepared for the people, you could come and at least watch what was going on at that particular time. So hospitality was very, very important, and so everybody look for the opportunity to meet a stranger and to make that stranger welcome into their home. Just recently, or I would say the week before Resurrection Day or Easter Sunday, I had some issues that I was dealing with that were a little strange to me. And I thought perhaps I needed to go to see a doctor. And so Elaine called the doctor, and by chance, the doctor had an appointment, I believe, that day, if I'm not mistaken, which it might have taken me for weeks to see the doctor, but he said, you know, come on, if you can take the afternoon appointment. And we did. And we found a stranger knocking at our door. Perhaps you've had strangers to come to your door at night. And in our world today, we don't normally go and quickly welcome a stranger into our house. They become sort of our castles where we protect people and protect ourselves from people. But we've been noticing that there had been somebody hanging out around our house. We had found some things missing and some things misplaced in our house. And we knew that something was knocking at our door and there was somebody stealing something from our house, but we didn't know who the thief was. But I remembered this passage, how perhaps we ought to welcome strangers into our life and embrace them when they come into our life. And so I answered the door, and standing at the door was a stranger, and he looked at me and I looked at him and I said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I go by initials, PD." Well, I said, "Well, I go by initials," and I told him the silly story that I always tell people whenever they ask me about my initials. I always tell them that silly story. If you want to hear that silly story, I'll tell you that. I said, "But you know, I don't identify people just by their initials. I want to know what your name is." Well, it wasn't a particular name that I wanted to have introduced to me at this particular time in my life. But that stranger who came to my door said that you come from a family of Parkinson's disease. Now, I found that Parkinson's disease, that there's a whole lot of people in that family, and there are a lot of people in that family that are strangers and have names that I didn't particularly want to be my friends. This stranger who came to our house was unknown, he was unwelcome, and he was uninvited. I didn't know a lot about him, but I decided that I was going to learn as much as I could about this stranger who'd come to our house. Now, the things that I found is that Parkinson's is a degenerative neurological disorder that results in the brain's inability to produce dopamine, a neurotransmitter that assists with motor functions. PD isn't a terminal disease, but it is a disabling one that spans not just years, but decades. PD patients have developed tremors, difficulty with speech, loss of balance, trouble swallowing, a lack of visual, facial emotion, and cognitive problems. Various therapies exist, but these address only the symptoms. They are not a cure, although researchers are making strides toward one. Now, when I read more about PD, I discovered that PD is uglier than I thought he was. And one of the things they said, you have cognitive problems and you forget things. Did I say to you that you have cognitive problems and you forget things? I discovered that PD is something that is a stranger who came to my door that I'm going to have to learn to live with. But there was a song several months ago that was sung here, and I went back to here to get the words to that song. It was a song that was written by Karen Peck. She said, I hummed the tune for several weeks. It seemed like that so many of our friends and family members were going through hard times. Even all of us on the KP in our bus were facing things that were very difficult. I can remember thinking one day, it seems like now more than ever, everybody's going through something. However, as long as we are living on this earth, it is inevitable that we are going to face problems and circumstances beyond our control. So if you're going through it, it is comforting to know that we have the Lord to go through it with us. We are not alone. With that thought in mind, she said, I shared the tune with the awesome writers Kenna West and Don Fortress. She said, I can remember sitting in a chair see him sitting in a chair with a guitar, singing the first line. The first line, there's a woman living next to me, just trying to make ends meet. She's just a check away from losing it all. Kenna started adding ideas, and together they said exactly what did I wanted to say in that song. This song speaks truth. It is honest. We opened our hearts to tell it as it was, but we gave the solution to be Jesus Christ. Life is always easy, life is not always easy, but we are never alone. And that is just one of the amazing things about the Lord and being a Christian. So if everybody is going through something, I'd rather go through something with Him. These are some of the words. There's a woman living next to me just trying to make ends meet. She's one check away from losing it all. And there's a broken man, I know. He's barely holding on to hope, trying to get back up from his last fall. And me, I'm dealing with my own trials no one else can see. Without Jesus, tell me, where would I be? Everybody is going through something. Everybody faces a storm now and then. So if everybody's going through something, I'd rather go through something with Him. Storms come and waters rise, and everybody cries. It's part of living while we're living down here, but I'm glad I'm not alone. on this road I'm walking on. If I put my trust in Him, there's nothing to fear. And when life seems so uncertain, I know one thing is true. There's a God who will see me through. I started walking the Appalachian Trail some years ago, and as I began walking the trail, somebody asked me, what would you do, or what will you do when you encounter a bear? Well, I told them, I said, like I tell my grandboys, if I encounter a bear, I'll stick my hand down his mouth, I'll grab his toe, and I'll pull him inside out. And that was before I met the bear. But I can tell you, on 2 occasions, I met a bear as I walked the trail. The first time, I was walking, minding my own business, and I looked over and I saw a bear just over to the left of me. I could have reached out and touched that bear. I was happened to be at that time lost and didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I could have touched the bear. And I was told in all the seminars that I went to that if you encounter a bear, don't run. My feet were in that seminar, but they didn't listen. And I found myself 100 yards back up the trail when I encountered that bear. And then I happened one day to be walking in the trail, and I met a bear, and we were face to face. And of course, we didn't have time to introduce ourselves to each other because I screamed uncontrollably. I didn't have any idea I had that in me. But without any recognition, I screamed at the top of my voice, and thankfully, that bear thought I was a woman and left. Well, we met the stranger at the door. And as we have met the stranger at the door, we listened to the words of what was said in this writing. And I have read a number of commentaries that always said that this was a man that you are meeting. And remember when Jacob wrestled with the angel, and God, in that moment that he was wrestling really with God, at the end of it, he touched Jacob and he said, your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel. And when he touched him, he had a limp for the rest of his life. Now, it very well may be that I'm going to be limping in the future. And one of the things that, and you probably have asked the question, how is this going to impact the church? You mean probably my sermons will not be 20 minutes, but probably 40 minutes because the speech slows down. So, you can probably anticipate the times in the future that you'll have to stay a little longer. But no, as it impacts my life, I'm going to embrace what it is God has given me at this particular time in my life, and I'm going to use it to glorify Him. Now, I found a good use for PD. The other day, I was sitting in my comfortable chair, and I heard Lean in the kitchen and moving about, and I heard her say, JW, would you take out the trash? And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. Well, she came in there, and she stood right over me, and she looked at me in the eyes and said, JW, are you going to take out the trash? I said, no. She said, but you said you're not going to take it out. I said, that wasn't me, that was PD. So there are going to be times when I'm going to call on PD to do a lot of things. Now, I have an excuse. What about you when I forget things? So, we are going to embrace whatever it is that God has given us at this point in life. And I'm talking to the choir because many of you have been my teachers. Because I have watched you embrace many of the issues in your life that have led me to understand what it means to, in face of difficulty, to embrace those things that come in your life. And you have taught me great lessons, and I'm going to learn to live with this, what I consider to be an angel unaware, in such a way that one day I know that PD will be in charge, and I know another day I'll be in charge, and always one day Willeen will be in charge. So the PD, as he enters into my life, I'm going to do my very best to greet him in such a way that I can use it to honor God, however it unfolds. And if you read about PD, you'll find that PD has many faces. It comes from a family called Parkinsonianisms. And there are many things that it can steal from you. But I am embracing it in such a way that I pray that I will be able to use that to further the kingdom of God. One of the senses that it takes away is your sense of smell. And it takes away a lot of other of the natural senses that we have. But one of the senses that God has given me that I pray that I will never, never lose, and that is the sense of humor. Because I believe through the sense of humor, God is able to use that in order to bring healing in our lives. And so as we embrace those issues that face us, just as you have taught me by your example and the pathways that many of you have taken in your life, that whenever those issues have come in your life, I hope that you can see perhaps that it is an angel unaware, and you will meet it and be able to embrace it and use that to further not only the kingdom of God, but to enrich your own lives. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to reveal this to you and talk about it, I've been living with it since whenever that was that we saw the doctor. He told us about it. I've been through the various tests, and only with PD can you get a clinical test. There's nothing that you can go and take and it says it's Parkinson's disease. It comes from a nasty family. And in that family, it's all degenerative kinds of things. There's no real known cause and there is no known cure, but all that they can do is to treat the symptoms as you encounter those. And I'm grateful for that. But as I embrace the angel unaware, I trust that it will be like things that have occurred in your life when you have recognized and you have walked that path where you have encountered someone who was a stranger that came to your door and you wondered, how am I going to manage this? That you too have remembered that God has promised us in Philippians that we can do all things through Him. He has promised us in the book of John that He will not leave us or forsake us. And in the book of Psalms, He said that we have the opportunity the psalmist said, oh, if I had the wings of a dove, I would take flight and run from it. But we have the opportunity to face whatever comes our way. And this seems to be what I am going to face in the near future. How is that going to impact the church? I trust that it will not, unless you want it to. I trust that it will not until the time whenever I begin to have symptoms and problems that are beyond public performance or public presentation. Because I know at that moment in ministry life, it's that moment that my children said, and I said to my children that when I start embarrassing you, I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing in public. And my boys reminded me if that was the case, you would never have started. Well, I would never want to embarrass the church with those things that I have encountered and am encountering just like you have encountered in your life. And I'm no different from anyone else. You may ask the question, do you ask the question, why has this come into your life? I'm 74 years of age. I have had nothing in my life to impair me much more than a common cold. And how could I, at 74 years in my life, even have an idea at 74 that I encounter something that they say is not life-threatening. It's life-altering, but it is not life-threatening. And like Abraham of old, there will be, like Jacob of old, there will be those times when I will wrestle with the angel. There will be those times when I will proudly embrace this angel and say to others, this is what God has given me, and this is the angel in my life that I'm going to use to honor Him. And as I read this passage and as I recollect so many I've studied, the unfortunate thing about the way that it presented itself in my life is that I discovered in use of this arm that I could not use it very much. That's one of the reasons I gave up being the yard man this year, is because I reached a point that I don't have the ability to use that. One of the saddest things about not being able to use it is I can't write those long love notes. I can't even write a sermon any longer unless I use a computer. And so this is the main problem that I have. Now the other cognitive problems I've had all the time, and it's nothing new. So we can't blame that on PD at this time, perhaps later, but not now. So I wanted you to know about what's happening in my life and what I'm encountering. And I trust that it will be something that we can move forward with, and you will help me. When you see me doing things that are inappropriate and perhaps that are limiting what we are doing as a church and as your pastor, don't be bashful. Tell Willeen, and I guarantee you she'll tell thee. And I want that to be a part of the journey, because you've shared your journey with me all along the way. And I have some little pills that I have to take out every now and then. As a matter of fact, I go to the senior center and I lost one, and I had to chase it down to find it in order to get it. Someone asked me what that pill was for, and I think I said it's because it makes me a better man. Something, I don't know, some silly something. But that's what we find, and as we encounter life, that we find ourselves encountering those things that are strangers to us, and perhaps things that are unwelcomed in our life. But I know that God is always working out His plan in our life. I like the little story of the boy who went with his grandmother for the quilting party, and the little boy had to stay under the quilt when they were making the quilts. And he could never understand all those strings hanging down, how that quilt could be of any value or beauty at all. And one day he questioned whether the quilt had any value, and his grandmother picked him up and lifted him up and let him look down on the picture or the quilt as it was being quilted together. And in that moment, he was able to see a beautiful picture that he could not see living beneath and looking up. And my prayer is that I will be able to look at the big picture and see what God has introduced into my life, so that I might use that to help others to see the larger picture of how God is working in our life to accomplish His will and purpose. Now, you probably are a little uncomfortable and say, well, how am I to respond to JW now? As you've always responded to me. What I've got is not contagious. It hasn't gone and changed me. I'm not a victim. I am not someone who's been given something that I've done nothing to earn or deserve it. If God was going to dish out something I earned, it'd be worse than this. So, as we continue to relate to one another, there's no changes. Just like I don't make any difference in those issues that you are managing in your life, as that stranger was introduced to you. But I ask that you pray for us. I couldn't have a more or a better partner in this than Willeen. The only thing is, I know with the promise of cognitive problems, I'll never win another argument. But I couldn't ask for a greater partner in this journey than I have with her. I couldn't ask for a greater family or friends in this journey. And that's why all these things that we've done in life, all these relationships that we have, that's what makes the future for us so pleasant and possible. And so I ask that you do pray for me, and that you understand that if I forget your name, it's not anything probably different, it's just the old me. But I ask that you pray for me and that God will use your issues and mine